Recording in about 15 seconds. All right, we're going to go ahead and start the meeting. It is good to see you all. I appreciate you being here tonight for the New Hanover County Schools Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee meeting. If you remember this meeting, we want to spend as much time as possible within our committees, so within our subcommittees, but we do have few items on the agenda for this evening. So I'd give Ms. Eastep or Ms. Adams the opportunity to do our welcome for today.
I'll just briefly say hello to everyone, and I know it's summer and I know it's really hot, but I appreciate everyone being a part of this and just being here. I'm always grateful for these meetings and for all the ideas and the communication.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I will say the same thing. I don't think I've been to one of our meetings where I haven't learned and grown in some form or fashion. And so I appreciate you all and definitely recognize the sacrifice that you make to be a part of this. Next, we have an update from the Equity Work Group. We've just tried to be a little more consistent in this. And also in providing the Equity Work Group with an update from EDI and the work that we're doing. And I'll start off, but then we do have Rachel, and we've got Chris, and we have Tyler, who also sit on the Equity Work Group, and guys definitely chime in. To me, the highlight of our last meeting was our guest speaker, Maddie Lewis, former Murray student of mine. And she is featured in the Maddie Speaks series through Cape Fear Collective. And, you know, she spoke to our group, and I would say to you that folks were very moved by her presentation. And, you know, Chris, Tyler, Rachel, your impression?
I too I can affirm that I was moved by her speaking. It was nice to get that perspective for me personally as a Black woman to hear it, and not because sometimes in these instances you think, is it just me? Am I playing the race card, or am I imagining these situations that I find myself in, or the responses that I get from certain people? And to hear someone else articulate the same views and instances that I myself experience, it was refreshing to see.
Yeah. And she spoke to us as a parent, and just as an update to our work group members and also our EDI, the principal of the school that was discussed as a part of our meeting, and also as a part of that particular episode of Maddie Speaks, I reached out to him to share with him what was discussed. He was very moved and actually has reached out to Maddie, and she and I were in email conversation today in terms of scheduling a follow-up meeting from that. That principal wants to better understand and to learn and grow from that experience, and to understand his impact on that situation, that child, that family. And so to that, yeah, you know, I'm extremely proud, appreciative of Maddie, but extremely also proud of our principal here in the district, who's very willing to grow in this space. We also provided, as I said before, an update from the EDI board, and that was very helpful for our work group members. And then there was an update in regards to the work around student equity. We had a group of students who were trained by Dr. Sheldon Eakins, and that was a very, I would say it was a very moving experience for not only the students, but also for him, so much so that he actually referenced it in his weekly newsletter that he puts out. He did not use our district's name, but of course, you very quickly knew it was New Hanover County, just simply if you were within the district. And so it really seems like we're making gains and forward motion, forward movement in terms of that front. And we are planning some more events with those students. Brian Jones and Abby Nobles from Murray Middle and Abby Nobles from New Hanover High School are leading that charge with our students. We also shared the district statement, which, you know, Tyler, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the impact that had on the group, just hearing the statement, knowing that the district had put that statement out.
I think so first of all, let me say thank you, Stephanie, Nelson, Caress, and Dr. Smith, everyone, Casey, Sean Bonham. I'm trying to think of everyone that was in on that. I think we crafted a really good statement. And I think the work group felt really good about it, Lisa as well. Sorry if I left you out. Just want to say, thank you. I think the statement was really good. We definitely got some feedback as far as the data. I think people really want to see the data behind that, so, you know, to support what we're doing. So I think with the first podcast episode that we did a great job of speaking to the data and how we are working to achieve the goals that we've set. So, and I've received a lot of personal feedback, Facebook messages, text messages, like, wow, I can't believe New Hanover County actually put this out. I can't believe they actually said Black Lives Matter. And that's important. I mean, that's definitely a first step. It doesn't need to fall on deaf ears, and we can't be tone deaf about it. But it's definitely a big first step. And I think it's received a lot of positive feedback, but certainly a little bit of nervous energy behind it as far as, you know, we've put this statement out now, we've got to live up to it. So we've definitely got some big work to do, but I think we're moving in a positive direction. I think the Maddie Speaks was a really, really, really powerful stepping off point as far as anecdotal data and evidence behind the work that we need to do. And I'm very impressed with how Dr. Smith handled that, and, you know, seeing it from both ends, like the mediation aspect behind it as far as, you know, bringing that equity work into, you know, admin and into our principals. It just meant a lot to me to be part of that conversation as well. So yeah, a lot of really good feedback, and definitely looking forward to the data piece of it and working on that and continuing to do big things.
Yeah. And the last update was that we welcomed our new members, and our process is slightly different than the board committee process. We want to make sure we've got a very varied group, and so we take nominations, not self-nominations, but nominations from existing work group members, and we reach out to the person that they've nominated to see if they can make a commitment to the work, and we try to make sure that we're balancing, you know, social workers, elementary, middle, high, special education teachers, classroom teachers, administrators, just making sure that we are covering all aspects of the school system as well, in making sure that as many folks and many groups are represented as we can at the table. And if I'm having a little bit of technology issues, not like we did last time, but it's like my mouse is not wanting to play nicely because I have 3 screens. I typically can toggle between 2, but not necessarily 3. So if you'll just be patient with me.
Dr. Smith, while you're working on the mouse, could I, maybe this is where I could speak. I was gonna say, could I speak to the C's, the Summer Equity Enrichment Series?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think we talked about it a little bit 2 weeks ago about our very good problem of not being able to get our 2 books for our book study that we're going to start this summer. But the way that that Dr. Smith brainstormed and came up with, which was really good, is just doing like little mini series, looks, doing some close reading and some close watching. So next Thursday will be our first meeting. So far with the invite that I've sent out, it seems like most people from the work are going to be able to attend. But we're going to discuss two pieces, White Pillage, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, and that author's name is escaping me right now. And then the TED Talk by Ibram Kendi, the difference between being a non-racist and anti-racist, just to start that. So we'll do that one, and then we're going to have another one at the end of the month, and then we're going to have another one right before, school starts. I'm saying that in quotations, whatever that looks like. But yeah, I think it's really good. And Dr. Smith and I have been talking, and the books are starting to come back in stock. So we're going to look at going ahead and getting some for the district to have to start our book study. And again, those two will be White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo and How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. And we'll start that in the fall.
And we ordered the books today.
Yeah, good. That's awesome.
All right, so up next, we have our workflow subcommittee update. And Rachel, did you want to lead this part of the discussion?
Sure, I'm ready. Are you going to toggle through the slideshow, or do I need to take over the screen?
If you can take over the screen, that would be great, because I did not put the top slideshow up. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I cannot take over. It looks like, let me see.
Well, let me stop sharing. Sorry.
Okay, can you see it?
I cannot. I'm still sharing my screen. Let me.
How about now?
Okay, I'm not seeing your screen. Is anybody seeing Rachel's?
No, not seeing it.
Okay. Rachel, do you want me to try to pull that up?
Sure, I can talk while you click if that's okay.
Is everyone seeing my screen?
Yes.
Chris, do you have it up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll pull it up.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Chris.
Teamwork.
All right, Rachel, whenever you're ready.
I have to stop trying to broadcast on my phone. Well, I'm going to go from my end. You can switch through. Sorry, guys. Okay. Chris, I'm just on the first one, just that we're proposing a workflow between the EDI committee and the equity work group. Hopefully, with this idea or one similar to, it would help us be able to tackle more things at one time. We do know this work is slow and meaningful, and that is okay too. The second slide in this presentation is really just a placeholder for the websites. I had a hard time finding the two different websites, so I just put them there for a reference. But on the third slide that Chris is going to pull up, there are a few models of consideration. Chris, if you could open the first one and scroll down until you see the words work group and task force in bold. These are links if anyone is going to look at this later. Chris, I can't see, so is it open?
It's open, Rachel.
Yes, Rachel.
It's open, sorry.
That's okay. So I think on page 5, you can see a description of work groups. This is an organization, educational and mission, but they sort of defined what their groups are and what they're working for. And I think something like this might be helpful. Tyler and Caress and I all kind of looked through these examples and then refined some ideas, but we're welcome to others. So where it says a work group, you see it's a subgroup of an entity, council, or committee that's appointed by the chair of that work. And then a task force is groups established to work on a single defined task, activity, or specific problem. Task forces are short in duration and specific in focus. So we can get out of there, Caress, and go back to the regular presentation. The second one is a similar model, and then the third one is about leading effective teams. And there's a really neat graphic organizer in that file. If Chris, you can open that one and then just scroll to the very bottom of that file. So this book is about leading healthy work groups, task forces, committees, how to be really effective. And at the very bottom, it talks about different phases and the importance of determining tasks, developing authority within the group, and defining the task, acquiring resources to carry out the task. Eliminating barriers was a big key in phase 4, and then evaluating the effectiveness in phase 5. So if we could go back to that original slide and scroll down to our workflow idea. Caress, will you let me know when it's visible?
It's visible.
Okay, thank you. So on the left, you can see the new Hanover County Schools Board of Ed. The next group is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, which is us. And then we have broken into 2 parts, the Academic and Behavioral Goals team and the Culture and Community Goals team. So an idea would be to honor that division among work group members and then target the different goals that we've selected as high priorities for this time. So the first group, which is the top right, would be short-term academic and behavior goals, work group task force. The second one is a long-term academic and behavior goals work group task force. And then at the bottom, you can see the short-term and long-term task forces that support community and culture goals. So this way, if people are in agreement, this might help us be able to determine where to find our niche, kind of our passion of what we're working on, and then share the load. So if, for example, you need short wins to be excited about being in these groups, maybe you are on the short-term work group task force, and maybe if you got a long-term vision and a long-term commitment, you might sign up for that work. But it also makes sure that the long-term goals start progressing now, because they're going to take a long time to carry out, and we don't necessarily want to wait until the short-term goals are met. The most important piece of this idea is that arrow on the bottom, showing directions going both ways. Chris and Tyler and I spoke, and we really feel strongly that this will not work if it only reads left to right. This will work really well if it can read left to right and right to left, because it's going to take the people that are in the schools and in the divisions to note the inequities that we have, to then be able to help us make good goals, which then results in recommendations to the board. So if you click on the next slide down, Caress, that is an idea for a cycle of progress. Similar to progress monitoring, in schools. The step one, which would always be revisited, would be goal setting and revision. So under the direction of the board, the EDI teams determine and revise short and long-term goals with input from work group members. And then it leads to key stakeholder identification. So the EDI teams and work group task force members identify New Hanover County Schools division leaders and key stakeholders necessary for goal achievement, monitoring, and reporting. Which brings us over to barrier identification. Division leaders and stakeholders collaborate with work group task force members to achieve or to identify potential barriers to goal achievement. After the barriers are identified, it would take us to selecting strategies to overcome those barriers, and then recommending people responsible for strategy implementation, which leads us to the next arrow. The EDI teams establish timelines for implementation, names people responsible for progress monitoring, and then reporting to the board, which takes you back into goal setting and revision. After you've met goals, you can create new ones, you can revise goals as needed. And then the next slide is kind of an idea about where it could fit into the work group meeting agendas, but Chris, Tyler, and I were reflecting on how we might not all be really familiar with the formal vernacular and steps for this process, so that might need tweaking. And then slide 7 would be the purpose of a task force. So to carry out short or long-term goals of the EDI committee, report progress to the committee contact to present to the EDI committee. And then the members of a task force would be the task force chair, and then work group members, and then key stakeholders. We may very well need other employees, students, families, or community members to tackle some of these goals. And then I looked up some of the goals that are linked to slide 7, the short or long-term goals that's underlined. That's an actual link. We don't need to click on that at this time because I'm pretty sure we're all pretty familiar with those things. But if we click down to slide 8, Chris, there is a short-term task force member idea. So there were 4 goals that really had short-term focus. One was on educator recruitment, specifically educators of color. And then Debbie Trapton has done a lot of work as a member of the work group. And so I would think of her kind of as the chair of that task force, and she seems to be heading that up, but it would make sense for other members of HR and our school district, actually, community to be present there. They sent out a survey today that might help recruit members even. Professional development is another one that we've spent a lot of time on with implicit bias training, groundwater, and our book studies. Family engagement is another one that we have talked about recently. How do we make sure all stakeholders' voices are heard? And then remote learning was a recent hot topic for equity. And then slide 9 talks about long-term task force members. Again, there might be more than these things, and it might be that we don't have enough manpower to do all of them at the same time, but worthy of discussion. So student voice shows up as a long-term goal. Brian and Abby are already doing a lot of work around that. Diverse student demographics and school enrollment is another goal we've had that's long-term. And then advanced course enrollment. So that's kind of the idea. I realize I went really fast. I would love to answer questions, as Caress and Tyler, I'm sure, could answer as well. Dr. Smith, I'm going to hopefully get into Zoom again, but get back to the camera. I might need to log out for a second and log back in.
Okay. So questions?
feedback.
Rachel was just that good. So when Cress, Rachel and I all met together, Rachel had definitely already kind of put a skeleton up, and it was really easy to build off of. So she did a lot of the framework for it, and it was nice. We were able to really get some good ideas flowing, and big takeaways here. We definitely want for the short term and long term goals to understand that, like Rachel said, it flows back and forth. In some cases, it should start with individual work group members. But in other cases, might start with board members. Might be something that Stephanie has an idea about, or Lisa has an idea about, or whoever, and wants to bring it, and then that can be disseminated down into the work groups. Or might be, individual members of the work group have something they want to push up to the board, and just idea that it can flow back and forth, just so that we can start getting some some really good consistency and momentum behind it. So yeah. Thank you again for Rachel and Chris and all the good work there. So
thank you for that, Tyler, and thank you, Rachel, for the presentation. I see a lot of good feedback, but questions, next steps?
I'll throw a question out there for you guys. On the task force, is that something we think is going to happen more immediately and soon? And also, is that like going to be work group members or EDI committee and work group, or all of the above and more?
I think it has the potential to be all the above and more. We definitely can't limit this work to just work group members and EDI committee members. We stretch ourselves already thin as it is being a part of these groups. So bringing in outside help within our school systems will be key in pushing out this work. Through responses I've gotten from educators at school levels in regards to the district statement, I know there are already educators in our school who would be committed to this work. So bringing them in and allow them to be a part of what we are doing, I think will be key with making sure that these long-term goals and these short-term goals can happen as efficiently and quickly as possible.
I hear one next step. Other feedback?
I think the key is going to be accountability. I think this is awesome. I guess, how would we track this? My mind goes to, I think I mentioned this to you, LaShawn, is just almost like an IEP. Can we put like even percentages by this, how close we are, or how would we track our progress? I think Rachel spoke to this too. What is that progress monitoring piece, and how would we show that to the community? So thinking about that perspective as well, I think it for me it is what I'm just kind of rumbling around. I would love to get, so I think I showed it to some people, just the website piece, being able to track that and being able to push that out, I think is really important. So, but I think this is amazing. I love this.
I think it's going to be a matter, this is Lina Espinosa. Hello, everybody. I think it's a matter of giving like the SMART goal setting that is gonna, for each of these goals, we need to create like a timeline and a percentage, and that is gonna give us like people involved and who else do we need and how much time do we need to see some progress. So when we take a pick of what we wanna get into, then we're gonna have like a sub meeting or a subcommittee, or depending on the amount of people, to create that skeleton within this big organization that is gonna give us like the action steps for each of these goals.
Yeah, so I can speak a little more to that. One thing that I can't remember if Cress was still on for this part. I think you were, Cress. But Rachel, is she still in the meeting?
I think so. Let me check.
Yes, back in. Woo!
Okay, cool. One thing that Rachel, Caress, and I talked about as well is basically we would kind of working within the work groups as far as short-term and long-term goals. We would just ask from each work group meeting that whoever the chair is would just give us a short synopsis, kind of what they did, so that we would have that to report back to the board. And that would not be Caress, Rachel, or I leading that. We would, have like, so for example, if you're looking at the long-term task force members, Brian and Abby would have like a very short synopsis of what they accomplished from their work group meeting. If you go back and look at the plan agenda, we have that specific task force meeting time. Then they would give us a short synopsis of what occurred, what happened. So that when we come back to the board and we give it to Dr. Smith, or we report back to the board, we can be like, under student voice, this is what they're doing. Boom, 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 boom. So there's nothing lost in translation. It's not Caress, Rachel, or I trying to write something, or Dr. Smith trying to write something. So I did that many hands make light work, and everyone's contributing and everyone's an equal partner. So that was part of kind of the accountability that Lena and Lisa that y'all were speaking to. So hopefully that becomes more clear, because I think that's a little bit of where we've been kind of figuring this out, is where things not necessarily get lost in translation, but where we can get it directly from whoever is in charge of this certain task force, if that makes better sense.
I think it does.
And I think the logistics of that is very important, like having a central place so we can file and archive all the meeting notes and all the information, and agreeing on the format, either if we want to do it through an spreadsheet, or we want to do it as a Google Doc, or a PowerPoint, however we want to present it, that we are in agreement on that format. So when we go and see the different meetings or the progress on those meetings, we can find it easily in one spot.
So I think something that Dr. Smith does very well is when she sets up her agendas for the work group and everything, we can just link stuff. So as far as like the task force group, if everyone having edit access to that, we could just hyperlink a separate Google Doc for each one that has the notes. So, and just ask, while your work group is working on this, someone within the work group, whoever your board chair is, like let's say Brian and Abby, one of those could act as like the scribe or the secretary or whatever you would like to call it, the minutes person, and they can record the notes so that we have that work group agenda specifically, so that we can go back and reference it and see those notes. I feel like that could probably work pretty well. I think that'd be a simple.
It's simple. It's not complex.
Right. I think it'd be something good. The board would have access, or Dr. Smith would have access to it, and we'd all be able to reference back to that. So again, and then we can see kind of where people are struggling. Like, we realized that definitely with our in-person meetings for the SMART goals, kind of like where we were, there are certain places that we were doing a really good job catching traction. And there are other places where we were struggling to catch traction. So I think that'd be really good to be able to see using the Google Doc and the hyperlinks.
The other thing that I was thinking about is the way that we want to put all the information together. We have pieces of information in different places. So for the purpose of each of these goals, we should have, as part of our SMART goal writing, to have like the beginning point with all the data that we have, analysis where we are starting in percentage or however, how much do we think, for example, talking about the student voice, what is our percentage based on the data that we have, or do we need to collect that information to know how much do we have that student voice so far and how much do we want to grow it? So that is going to give us like tangible things that we want to achieve in a specific time period.
An idea that I had, just to add on to what Tyler and Lena were saying, is a little complicated, but I've done it before, is using Excel to make a dashboard. So like if you had each of your task force and they put the information that they've been working on, and you have the data that goes with that, the tasks that they've been doing, and I would say you would probably need just one person to collectively take the information from each of those to input it into the dashboard. So that way you can have very quick, you can have charts and graphs and whatever and color coded percentages, all of that. So you can kind of at a quick glance look at it. So that's kind of like a dashboard. There's different free platforms that you can get online as well to modify it however you want to. But that was just an idea that I had.
Thank you, Jennifer. That is a really good idea.
All right, so next steps. So I think first is probably Rachel, you, Tyler, and Caress presenting this to the work group so that they, yeah, because they knew that we were working on this, but they haven't seen it in its complete form. So I think presenting this to the work group, and then maybe the work group answering some of those kind of questions in terms of how the data is collected. And then for the different items that we're working on, really establishing that timeline and the percentage for each goal. Did those sound like reasonable next steps?
Yes, ma'am. I think those are very doable and tangible.
I think people will be very excited.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And, you know, I love it when, you know, you start with this, you know, problem, and by coming together, you know, you get this incredible solution. And so I really appreciate everything that you guys have done to invest in this. So thank you very much. Let's see where we are. I think this is where we are. So next, if I'm toggling the right way, all right, I think I might have. All right. So next we wanted to talk about, well, actually, I think I've toggled too far. Well, let me go to this first and then we'll go backwards. But we wanted to talk about, and Mr. Eastep, you alluded to this just a little bit, putting together a subcommittee to work on, or actually now task force, thank you, Rachel, to work on revising the district's website. And I know that Caress was willing to be a part of that work. I didn't know if this was an interest of anyone else.
I would love to participate in that.
Okay, Jennifer, thank you.
I would like to support from the Spanish part too.
And Lena. All right, thank you.
I'd like to be a part of that too, Dr. Smith.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it, Gail.
And me too, Dr. Smith.
All right, thank you. Who wants to be my lead?
I'll volunteer. I'll step out of my comfort zone and volunteer.
Thank you. So Jennifer is the lead. So I will let you organize, put that together, and then let me know when you are ready to share back with us. All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yay, I'm so excited.
Yes. And let me go backwards. Actually, I might be missing a slide. Well, in my mind, I had one more slide, but maybe not. Nope, I didn't. All right. So one other thing, and I apologize, I didn't have a slide as a reminder, but it is in the agenda. Wanted to talk a little bit about the district statement. And I know Tyler spoke about it from the perspective of the work group, and then also what he has heard personally from, you know, folks who are in his circle and who he works with professionally. But I wanted to give Caress an opportunity to maybe speak about it from a district perspective, and then also everyone here who would like to share as well, just in terms of maybe the response that you've received, you've heard, or maybe even your personal feelings about the district statement. So, Caress?
Just first reiterating what Tyler did. Thank you to everyone who participated, gave their input. Thank you for the board members who supported and allowed us to push that statement out there. This time last year, if you would have asked me if we could say something or push something out there as strongly written as we did, I would have never imagined it would have been allowed. So thank you. I cannot express as a African American educator in New Hanover County Schools how much being able to work on and push that statement out it meant to me. My daughter this past weekend asked me what color she was. She says, "Mom, what color I am?" And she's looking in this big 72-inch mirror that I just put in my room. And I said, "Honey, you're black and you're white." She's like, "No, Mommy, I'm gold, like the sun." And that just made my heart melt. But then it also scared me because there's going to be a day, and it may happen sooner than I'm ready, where it's going to hit her that no, she's black. There's no passing for white for her. She is black. And the work we are doing here, I am pushing for it to work to where that will not be the same experience I had as a black woman that she has. So putting that statement out was the first step for us in that. So thank you all who worked on that and got that out there. I just wanted to share that before I dig into some of the things we talk about. So the response I got from the statement from educators through district email was overwhelmingly supportive and appreciative. They were very grateful. They were very caring and compassionate. And there are people who I didn't even realize who I've worked with at schools who are dedicated to this work already at the school level, who they were sending me articles and stuff to read and listen about. So the need and the push is there at a school level. If it's even just one or two people at a school, it is there. The feedback I got back on social media was a little more critical, which I expected it would be. If you're like me, or maybe you're not, because I'm a social media troll, it's what I do basically for a living. I went into comments, not only that they left on our Facebook page, I was on the comments that they were writing on Tyler's Facebook page, on the group they invited Tyler to, and then I got an invite to that same group and was reading what they're saying, what they're wanting, and it came back to the same thing. Okay, you said these words, now show us. So moving forward, we know the work we're doing is important. We know why it's so important, and we know what we're doing. We know what our quick wins are. We know what our processes are, and we know this is a marathon. It's not going to happen overnight. I wish it could happen overnight. I wish we could just snap our fingers like that and then it happens, but it's not. So from my perspective of reading everything that I read, I decided to go to Dr. Smith, go to Ann Gibson and say, hey, we have this podcast. This is another medium, alternative way we have to where we can have these difficult conversations that we said in our statement that we're going to have. So let's have these difficult conversations, but not just in the arena of school level educators, but let's put those conversations out to our community, out to our stakeholders so that they can also hear those conversations. So we did a podcast last week, and thank you, Board Chair Estep, Dr. Smith, Rachel, and Tyler for joining me on that podcast. If you haven't listened to it, please listen to it. It's on district Facebook page, and I sent out all district email. But it's just talking about the processes that we're going through, the wins that we've already had, and where we want to go. We ran out of time. Dr. Smith tried to limit us to 15 minutes. We went to about 25 still, and we cut it off. So we're going to look at doing another one of those podcasts in about 2 to 3 weeks with those same people. It was interesting. I reached out to Tyler first. I said, hey, I have this idea. Would you be willing to do it with me? And I was looking at working with those people who are both representatives from the EDI committee and representatives from the equity work group, because they have their foot in each of these pockets of seeing the work we're doing. So whereas some people who are maybe just on the EDI committee may see it being a little bit more slow in progress, and some people in the work group who also may see it being a little more slow in process. Those core know that, hey, this work has been going on since 2018. We've been pushing for it. We are in it from the LGBTQIA arena. We are in it from the those with disabilities arena. We are in it from the Black and brown little boys and girls that we serve arena. The work is happening. So I brought all those individuals on, and we had a great conversation. Again, we'll follow up with that conversation in about 2 to 3 weeks. But then building from that, I will also we have a district show, Diversity Matters. This week, Deb Trafton will be coming on Diversity Matters to talk specifically about the HR wins that we have right now and highlighting what HR is doing. The survey that they did send out today that will hopefully lead to ambassadors and other educators of color who can help with the retention and recruitment rate of educators of color. When we build on from the podcast, I would like to bring in the students that Brian Jones and Abby, thank you, are working with. I want to hear their voices. I know they mentioned in our last equity work group that those students were a little missed it, that the district hadn't put out a statement yet, and that there was nothing, they didn't feel that the district cared enough for them. That statement is out there. So I asked them to share that statement with them, but then again, I want to still hear that voice. I want to hear the voice of our parents as well. Listening to Maddie speaks again was so powerful, hearing her, but she is not unique in her story. There are so many Black moms, Black dads, brown moms, brown dads who are experiencing that same thing. So I want to bring those stories to the forefront so we can have those stories, and then we can again have those conversations with those teachers, those principals, to rectify that their maybe misgivings or their bias that they don't even know they have. This is what we're talking about when we're saying we have these difficult conversations where we make people uncomfortable. So we want to continue moving on with those conversations, and that is because they're holding us accountable. They're watching what we're doing. They read our words, and now they want to see our actions. So thank you for everyone who participated already and those who I will tap in to participate in the future.
All right, thank you for that, Caress. Anyone else who wants to speak about maybe the impact the statement had on you or what you've heard from the community, concerns, questions, just in regards to the statement?
One thing that I'll definitely highlight that someone shared with me today, I don't know if anyone's been following the news, but UNCW had a racial discrimination suit started against them today on the federal level by an employee, and she raised a lot of really good questions, and I think she, at minimum, certainly has a case. So one thing I think that a lot of people, which we've already talked about within our EDI board, is broadening our horizons and our partnership outside of UNCW, as far as, like recruiting teachers and things. So that's one question I've been able to answer, because I know Deb Crafton has talked about restarting NABST and that relationship, work with local HBCU alumni chapters in Wilmington. So we are ahead of the curve on that. So, we've talked about it before, but it's a two-pronged issue. As far as, just attracting teachers to come to this area, if you don't have roots established in this area, it's not easy to attract African-American candidates to come to Wilmington. It's just not. I think we've seen that time and time again, but we are working on that. I think Dr. Martin's been really good at helping brainstorm some ideas on that. But that was something that was shared with me today and yesterday. Definitely some concern there, because like again, with that racial discrimination lawsuit, saying that UNCW has less than 5% of their students are African-American. And a lot of the times when you see pictures that come out of Watson, you see, it's about the same picture every time. It's a lot of white faces. And it's the reality we live in, but I really appreciate that there's a lot of people that are saying, okay, what is New Hanover County School doing about this? How are they actively trying to work to recruit teachers outside of UNCW? So I think that's good, because we've been able to answer that question, say, well, we're doing 1, 2, and 3. So we're hoping that that's going to, equal some wins. But that is one concern that I've heard expressed. So to specifically answer that.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Dr. Smith, can I just comment on Caressa's comment for a moment?
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Thank you. I just would like to say I think that your daughter proves that children are smarter than most of us. So I really like that comment about her being gold.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a comment too about the statement. It's the first that I've seen. There may have been some statements from years past, but I've never seen a statement as comprehensively written as this statement was written. It touched on a lot of different points. So I was really surprised when I saw it, but also glad to see it as well. It made me feel like we're moving in the right direction. One thing that did come up from someone that I was having a conversation with was about the disciplinary action piece of the statement. Their concern was whether numbers lower because we were not in school, and I didn't have an answer. So I basically said, well, I don't know. It was written since March, and the students were in school up until March. So I'm kind of thinking maybe they used data from March back to August. I really couldn't answer that part, but I tried to, speak as positively as I could about that. So that's only feedback that I have. But other than that, I thought it was very well written. Did a really good job capturing everything that we're working on and letting the district see that we see the problems, we're working on the problems, and hopefully we'll have solutions coming up pretty soon.
Thank you. Thank you. If no one else, then the next item on the agenda is
Dr. Smith.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Hey, it's Julie. Hey, can I add one thing in real
Yes.
quick?
Mm-hmm.
Without going any deeper into any other issues, I want to say that as an employee of New Hanover County Schools, there have been times in the not so distant past where I have not been proud of our work. I've not been proud of some of what we were known for. And I have to say that I'm really proud of the statement and really proud of the work around equity. And I have been a part of some really positive conversations regarding, like was just shared, how comprehensive the statement is and what it really means for our greater community. And I'm just really thankful for that. And I'm thankful for it to be exactly this. So that was it. Thank you.
Well, Julie, I appreciate that. And I think as Chris referenced, we just need to hold ourselves accountable. Not rely on the community to hold us accountable, but if we can have that internal accountability and live up to that statement, I think we will have served ourselves and our children in our community well. The next item on the agenda is planning, which is not my expertise, a work group and EDI committee social. I know that we did have a social occur before, and I'm so appreciative of folks that put that together. And unfortunately, it was at a time where I could not attend. But as we begin this new year, it would be nice for folks to come together again. Again, planning parties is not my thing. So I would be very interested in us putting together a task force that would be willing to take on this responsibility.
I have a quick question, and I'm not sure if it's silly or not. Are we thinking, is it going to be digital, I would assume, or in person?
I would say, and it's definitely not silly. I would think, unless we were planning way in the distant future, it would need to be virtual.
Okay. That was kind of my thinking too.
But we could share menus ahead of time and everybody order the same thing or cook the same thing.
I was about to say, I had a caterer in mind. I had a caterer in mind as well. So
there you go. So volunteers who would be willing to put this together.
I mean, you know, I'm always down to plan a party, but I've already signed up for the website task force, and I feel like I can't sign up for 2 task force.
Okay, so if we're planning something virtual, like when you say plan it, do you just mean set a date and a time and send out invites? I mean, if you're doing something virtual, there's not a lot of, I'm not trying to be a smart ass, but like, I just don't.
You know what, Franchon? Well, if you're not trying to be, whatever you are, I love it. Just however we want to name it. So, I mean, like, so what are like the activities and what happens after people show up? I mean, so you would be the hostess.
Oh yeah, bet. I got you. I can do that.
Yeah. So Franchon is in charge.
So send out the drink menu and the food menu and plan some games.
Actually, team building via virtual has been my like thing for whatever reason. I always get stuck doing things I don't want to do. Like, I don't understand. I try to hide. I try to not leave my house. Like, I try so hard to do the things I don't want to do. And then people are like, but Franchon, you're good at this. And I'm like, actually, I'm not. Anyway, so I discovered some really cool ways to kind of like do virtual icebreakers. So I guess we'll do that and then just set like a quick agenda, and I'll just need to know who all I'm inviting, and that's it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I will reach out to, or you can reach out to me either way. And I'll give you the party list, invite list, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Just
I'm
question
already
too.
excited.
Who was it? Sean that did? Who did the last agenda? The first one? Because I know that there was Christy Howe, I think, from the work group. Sean was a part of it, and who else? Just so if Franchon just needed suggestions of how it worked last time.
Casey raised her hand.
Yeah.
That's right, Casey. Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you any kind of support, Franchon, you know, virtually, I'm here to support you. But legit, I'm sure Sean's in too.
Yep, I'm in.
All right.
And, yeah, Franchon, I can help as well. I don't want to take on too much right now, just because.
Tyler, I love you, and I actually miss you in my life, but no. You're doing too much. I say that from a place of love. There are people in my life that have looked at me and said no. So I know. But when is our deadline, Dr. Smith?
I think it's completely up to you guys.
Okay.
I think it's completely up to you guys.
And just real quick before we move on, is everybody okay with this being more of a like the social thing, like literally being social? Because I know that this is really heavy for me. Like this, I'm just really over a lot of things right this hot second. And I would really love to be in a space where like we weren't doing heavy stuff. Like we were just not that it can't naturally come up, but there's not like an agenda of like, hey, the fate of New Hanover County Schools relies on your ability to say whatever you're about to say correctly. Like, I'm not really interested in that kind of space. I'm more interested in like, hey, how do we build a relationship with each other as individuals so that when we struggle, we feel comfortable calling each other to get this really important work done.
Yes.
Okay.
And I have a paid account for Zoom. I don't know if you do. I know some folks do. Oh, you do? All right, great. You're great. All right. All right. So going back to kind of the purpose of this meeting was really to spend time in our breakouts. And I am the worst timekeeper ever. And so I apologize to you for that. It is now 5:58. And so if we go into breakouts, you're probably going to have all of about 15 minutes. And then we would come back and then we'd have about 10 minutes for a debrief. Now, is that going to frustrate you? Because it's not going to be near long enough to really spend the kind of time that probably you want to spend? Or do you think it would be worth the time? Now, if we don't, then maybe we can dedicate the next meeting, bar, 10 minutes of whatever, being completely breakout time. So you tell me what works for you guys.
I mean, I think 15 minutes is better than no minutes, but that's just my opinion.
I agree with Franchon. It's been so long since we've had a good breakout session with our subcommittees. It'd be good to kind of reestablish where we're at.
And I miss Tyler. I just see him at like life-changing events and say hi and then keep walking.
All right, so let me go to my document where I have all the names. There we go. All right, so breakout room 1. So in room 1, we've got Casey, Karen. Well, where's Karen? There's Karen. Caress, Franchon, Miss Easter, Sean Bynum, and Gail. And Kiana. All right, and so if you need any assistance, let me know. And so we are going to send you guys to your breakout rooms. So make sure. Oh, here, might have done something really bad. Sorry. Okay, so open, so room, so breakout room 2 to everybody else.
Hey, Franchon, I'll let my dog say hey too. They could be cousins.
It could totally be related.
Great, guys. Here we go. And I'll bring you back in 20 minutes.
Who's the BOE center? Who is that?
Would that have been Mr. O'Brien?
No, because
He
I saw
had his own
him.
thing.
I don't know.
Maybe tech support.
I was about to say, yeah, maybe they're doing it to record. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So yeah, thinking about, I guess, looking at our SMART goals. So reestablishing the work we're doing around those. It's kind of weird. I'm more of a physical person. Like, I like mapping things out, like handwritten, like how we were doing before. So I'm really struggling to wrap my mind around this right now, as far as where we left off. Casey, I know this is kind of your strength as far as remembering kind of where we were leaving off. I know we were talking, of course, about working on teacher recruitment was one of the things we were talking about. And then, but that I don't know why that's my wheelhouse right now, or what I'm trying to work on. But that was the last I remember. Maybe Lena can help me out, because she's women are always more on top of it than men. That's all I can say.
No, not this woman. Well, we did last time. We had only been in one breakout room, and you were not in this meeting. That was the first time when we appoint you as the leader of this group. You remember?
Yeah, I got that email. It's like, hey, I have no idea what that means, but as long as someone's willing to walk with me through it, I'm there. So yeah.
So I'm trying to go over my notes to see maybe Casey can help me out. She is the one that is really organized on this for this group, so we need her. We were trying to come up with the short-term goals. I think that was the last thing we did, and we were preparing the meeting with Dr. Martin and waiting to hear from his report on the progress of the last the first conversation we had with him. So after that, we haven't met again, like to discuss and see what are we gonna do with that information, if that is what we want to continue on. Or the other thing that we can do is, based on the new framework that we got, we can start kind of laying out the goals and assigning contact people to see what we are going to, who's gonna take the lead on what, based on the other goals that we had. I think if we get to lay out the work for our next meeting, will be ideal. What do you all think?
Yeah, I dropped into the chat a spreadsheet that, to my recollection, is kind of like part of what you were getting at earlier, Lena, in terms of logistics and like, you know, having things in one spot. So this to me is like the most updated. The only other place that I've seen some of this is like if Dr. Smith has it on slides, you know, during a meeting. So I don't know. One thing I would like to propose for the group too would be like, for the next time we meet, just what are roles for people, like, you know, who maybe wants to be minutes taker. Normally I'm all in for that, but my neck and shoulders and stuff are like, please take the summer off. But you know, we can do that kind of thing collaboratively too. It makes it a lot easier.
And if we can rotate that duty, you know, one person can take it one day and the next day, so not every one person is always doing it. I think that's the fair thing to do, and maybe appointing one person to help us stay focused in our topic, the topics that we want to discuss, so we can have something, you know, concrete to present and to report. Because sometimes we start talking on one thing and then we move to the next one, then to the next one, and when it's time to report, we don't have like we don't see the progress. We have a productive conversation, but we don't see the progress on the work that we are doing.
And on that note, I was going to ask Tyler. He said he was working on the teacher recruitment part. Could you give us a brief update on?
Well, so one thing that Brian Martin talked about, I believe at our last EDI board meeting, was working on the, this is where notes come in. He spoke a lot to this because he had experience with this in Wake County. So his former position was working on HR in Wake County. So he had some ideas behind that, behind how to establish connections with HBCUs, behind how to recruit actively at those schools as well. Also how to offer pathways for teacher assistants to become teachers, which that was something I didn't even know about. The county and district already had in place. So if you do find Black people working within schools that are not custodial staff or not your classified staff, a lot of times you'll find them in teacher assistant positions. So how to work behind encouraging those individuals to go back and become classroom teachers. So he kind of spoke to that. So he's talking about from the HR front. I know the other thing that we've discussed, and the process has already begun with this, is questioning, you know, what is the experience with recruiting minority teachers for the new HR director, for whoever is going to take the superintendent of HR or the human resources director and assistant director, because both those positions are vacant right now. Brian Martin is a stand-in. So that's part of the work that they're questioning, I believe, is what is the experience that our next HR person is going to have with trying to recruit those teachers? Because it seems to be something that we've lacked before. So that was kind of where we left off. I know that Deb Trafton had talked about restarting the NAPC, which was, I forgot what the acronym stands for, but it's an association for basically Black educators. And we've had it before in the district, but its since has kind of disappeared, fallen off. So they're bringing it back. So she's helping reestablish that. So just multiple different efforts to try to curb that problem. So I kind of feel lost because I lost the last break-in session, and then in 1 week I was like, "Hey Tyler, you're going to do this and this," and I'm like, "Cool." And so understand that I am trying to stay ahead of the curve as well, and keep my feet wet along with doing the other things. So I hope that helps some, Karen.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
At some point we had talked about, and I know Karen and I had like a little sidebar conversation about this. I don't know where we are with it in terms of making sure we're taking care of the teachers of colors we do have, because we do have some. It's not like we have none. And I know pandemic life has got everybody derailed, but I'm at the point personally where I refuse to put my life on hold anymore. So I'm just going to wear a mask and be on Zoom and keep it moving, because I can't, life can't stop because bad things are happening. So to that end, I just wanted to know what others' thoughts were on terms of just touching base with the teachers of color that we have and thinking of creative ways to take care of them. I'm happy to do it by myself as Fran Sean, if somebody can give me that list, because that's how important I think it is. I think sometimes we look at increasing numbers, we forget what we have already. So that's just super important to me. If it's important to other people, let me know. If not, if I could get that list, that'd be great.
Well, it's important to me. I think retention is very important, because if we can't retain some of the teachers of color that we have, and then we're having difficulty getting more, then that even exacerbates the problem. So, and if there's something that we can do, maybe we could have a virtual session with teachers of color if we, find out who they are, with that list that you were talking about. Excuse me, my daughter's trying to get in. I got to go let her in.
Go ahead. So I don't know what others' thoughts are about that.
So this was definitely brought up at the last EDI board meeting, because I remember specifically we talked about how we were trying to highlight what's really good in New Hanover County as far as HR. And one of the things that HR does really well is we have a phenomenal beginning teacher program. But of course, that's, for your first 3 years. But then someone brought up, well, what are we doing specifically to help our educators of color or black educators in New Hanover County? So I think it's definitely something good. Maybe that could even be, Dr. Smith, if you agree, maybe that can be one of the task force that we establish with a couple of people as far as, maintaining that connection with our district educators of color and other Black educators.
Well, and what I'll say is it's definitely not dependent on me. My role, I think, really is to kind of remove as many barriers to allow the facilitation of the meeting. But whatever you guys decide as the course and the path, then we surely can move that agenda forward. So you definitely don't think that it's anything that has to necessarily come through me. We can surely ask the question.
Yeah, because I think one of the big things too, in general, certainly from what I've heard, is it just, in conversations with my wife and others as well, is just, the community aspect of Wilmington. What is there for new teachers of color and Black educators coming into Wilmington? What does Wilmington have to offer them? I think it's going to be big, and just having some key contact people there, I think would definitely at least be a good start. I don't know if that's something you guys agree with.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to meet and talk to them. So I recently spoke at an event, and obviously I always self-identify as a licensed therapist. So like someone that just moved into Wilmington came up to me and was like, I don't know the lay of the land. I've heard this rumor. I've heard that rumor. I have no idea what's true, what's not true. Can I just sit down and have coffee with you? I'm like, sure, no problem.
Exactly.
Just to have that professional support of like, hey, this is my opinion, take it or leave it, but here you go. If you have some questions, call me. Just so they feel like they have some sort of professional connection in Wilmington. She's done LGBTQ work in New York. She herself is a person of color, so she's like has some concerns. Just based on, she moved in, and as soon as she moves in, they're like 3 policemen are fired, and like all these headlines that are very local headlines. She's like, what did I get myself into? But just seeing me, another licensed person of color, really helped her to be like, okay, at least there's one person I can kind of talk to. I'm not in this by myself. We likely won't work for the same agencies. I work for myself, but it's just a matter of having that support. So I would kind of just like to offer that to the teachers of color to say, hey, I don't work for the board. I am not a teacher. I'm just here to check in with you, see if there's anything that you need, and then identify some trends. And then if there is something we can provide, great. And if all we can provide is, emotional support, to me, I know that that's valuable.
But I think to make it sustainable, we need to tie it to the goals that we are setting on our framework. So if we want to bring this as a point to our agenda the next time we meet in our breakout group, and we can lay out some action steps, and then see one person will have to find the people that we are talking about, who's going to be the contact person, like an initial way to give a body to this idea, because it's very important and we want to keep it sustainable and being part of our quick gains. That is something that we can organize in a meeting and have it as a get-go for the beginning of this school year. We're going to start doing this monthly meetings or whatever, or the contact point. I'm your contact person. And then if we do it like that, is going to have an organization, and we can start checking on progress on that. That is going to have a direct connection to the big framework that Tyler and the other team members were working so hard on. Do you like that idea for action step for next week, for next time we meet?
I beg of
so
you.
Let's keep that as the next point. We're going to give an structure and an organization to this idea for our next meeting. And I'm going to be the person that takes notes. So me taking notes. And who wants to be
task
the
keeper?
Perfect. Casey will be the
timekeeper, task keeper, whatever.
Okay, Casey, that is perfect for you, for sure.
Okay, what do we need to bring to try to get more organization for our next meeting? Do we have a list of these teachers or professionals of colors for the next meeting? Is that something that we can find from somebody? Because if we have those numbers for the next meeting, we can easily start establishing
if we can have that list for the next meeting so that we know what we're dealing with in terms of like, do me and one other person need to check in? Do we need 3 people? Like, I don't want to say it's something I can do if it's 50 people. That may be unrealistic.
Sean, I'm a jump on it person. So I am on that right now. Just what I need from you, and I'm going to email Dr. Martin and Deb Trafton, because both of those are within HR. What specifically should I ask them so that I can get the information that you're seeking? Should I ask them, like, should it be focused on new hires? Should it be focused on new hires plus teachers within the last 5 years that have been hired? What do you think would be the best way to ask?
I would just say I think you guys use the word classification. Is that basically in my field, I would say license. So anybody that is an actual like certified teacher.
Yeah, so we call it, so they're certified and classified. Certified is all your, educators of, various, and then classified are your teacher assistants, custodial staff. So I'll say certified staff.
And we are also including counselors and social workers, like people within the school system, or we want to broaden it up? How big do we want to start?
that would count as certain. Okay, Kate, go ahead.
Thought we were talking initially about teachers.
I like that idea.
I mean, you know, it's important that we retain all staff, certified staff of color. But I think that they will have different concerns, maybe different things that they might want to talk about from a classroom teacher perspective. So it seems like we would want to keep that a little separate. I don't know.
And
I mean, I've been out of
Tyler,
away from the
maybe
school
just
system for a few
asking
years.
what those numbers are. Like, here's the classified, certified, whatever word you guys said, and then here's the counselors. And then at the beginning of next meeting, when we have that information, we can make a group decision about, because if it's 2 people, I don't think there's a problem in including them. If there's 5, that's a little different. So just kind of talking about, you know, if we have information at the beginning of the next meeting, we can make an informed decision.
And Tyler, I think you're wanting to know new hires 3 years and 5 years.
So
Okay,
that's new hires 3 years and 5 years.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Gail. That's
I think with that we can start next meeting with that information. Perfect. So we have a plan for next meeting. Good.
And I literally have the email up right now, so I'm just going to ask them, and I'll put Dr. Smith in as well. So it looks like we got about 45 seconds till we go back to the meeting. So what do we do? Dance party for 45 seconds?
I got 35 seconds worth.
And it's not going to be that many counselors and social workers of color anyway, so that's not going to throw your numbers off too bad.
I actually have one that is coming. My friend that is a counselor in my school is her first year here, and she had a rough year. She needs support, so we want to keep her. Okay, I'm going to guess her to you. She really needs support from all of us to stay. I don't want to lose her because she is amazing, but she doesn't understand how we work. And it's taking me like 3 years and some change to understand how we work here. So.
All right, I think everybody's back. I am so sorry. It was hard to push that button. I popped in and out of the rooms and just heard incredible discussion. And so what I'd love now is for each subcommittee to provide just a brief report or synopsis of your discussion and maybe 1 or 2 next steps that you've identified.
Lena and I can go first for school culture, community and culture. And I can't remember if I'm the chair or co-chair, but Lena certainly is doing amazing things already. So she definitely helped catch me up to speed. But one thing that we're working on is how do we support our educators of color and other Black educators in the district. So what we're looking at, and Franchon and Lena have stepped up for this as well, is kind of coming up with like basically, I guess support group is maybe the best thing to call it, although that's not exactly accurate. But just to help them feel supported within the community and within their job positions as teachers. So Franchon and Lena will be perfect for that. Lena working for the district, and the Franchon working with the mental health affinity group. There we go, Stephanie. That's perfect. Thank you. So how do we support, especially our new hires and those that have been with the district for less than 5 years? How do we support and maintain, and yes, Karen as well, will be a part of that. How do we help maintain those relationships to make them feel part of New Hanover County Schools and part of the community? And so next step for that is going to be, I'm going to reach out to HR and find out approximately how many within the last 3 to 5 years, how many educators of color and Black educators have been hired in the district, to get an idea of what those numbers look like. And then around that, we can kind of start building. And how many are still with the district, because I think that will be a big key too, is I feel like I already know the answer to this, but our retention rates, that's going to be key. And I think Franchon, Lena, and Karen working with this is going to be key. Oh yes, Andy, thank you. I will look at that as well. So the teachers with or educators with certain disabilities, etc. Just because I think it's important for us to know what does our certified staff look like as far as different various demographically, what do they look like, so that we can start establishing what an affinity group would look like. Yes, Stephanie.
I have a question. Since you're going to talk to HR, could you also find out if they are, I don't know if we're doing this, but talking about, I know we do exit interviews. You talked about retention. Are we doing transfer interviews? So if you know, taking a look at the teachers that go someplace else and finding out why that happened within the district.
Okay, so
this might be an interesting avenue.
So asking, I guess, if they have data collection from exit interviews and transfer interviews. Okay, cool. All right, easy enough.
Tyler, again, I am meeting with Deb Trafton on Thursday for Diversity Matters. So any questions you guys have that you also want the whole general public to know right now, please shoot me those questions and I can ask her on our episode on Thursday.
Cool. Well, I will go ahead, and I definitely think one thing that we've kind of already addressed is, you know, definitely like you're saying, what is the district doing to try to recruit and retain teachers of color, black educators? Because I think that's something that's certainly been brought up a lot since the statement got released. So that'll be important. Thank you, Caress.
And we also want to try to start working in a smart way. So we want to connect it to the framework that was presented to us early. So we want to give it like what part these small tasks that we are putting on ourselves to develop, where is that going to connect with the big picture that we are putting together, and how short or how long term is this going to be as a goal? And the other thing that we discussed, we want to start small. We want to start with a specific target audience that is going to be teachers of color, and we are going to have teachers with disabilities or any other minority that can be reported or we have information on. And then we want also potentially add counselors and social workers depending on how the numbers play with us. And we want to start with a small idea that we can put into practice by the beginning of the year, and then start from there. See how else is that going to evolve in something else, and how can we keep adding to this goal that is going to be retention of teachers of color.
Okay. All right, thank you. Our second subcommittee, academics.
Dr. Smith, we talked about the need for social emotional learning curriculums as we go forward. We talked about the different possibilities that might be available through CARES Act funding and just our work with that, and probably the need to collaborate with our student support services folks to do some of that work, and we know that they already are. And then we talked a little bit more about the need for just analyzing discipline data, but we think that that's probably going to fall under the culture and climate piece. And then we talked again about including STEM courses in our advanced coursework as we look to see, you know, how we're doing in terms of making sure that we have equitable opportunities, making sure that we keep STEM at the forefront as well as all of our advanced courses. Julie, did I leave anything out?
I don't think so. I'm sorry, Al. I'm dealing with that situation that you and I were talking about earlier, back and forth. But no, I think that captured it. And yes, we are definitely working on the rollout plans for the social emotional learning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any specific next steps?
I'm sorry, Dr. Smith, was that directed to me? I'm sorry if I missed that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think the next steps, I think, would be, again, just making sure that we are synced with our student support services department, which we already are, taking a look at the different SEL programs. I know we were talking about second step as a possibility for middle school, keeping in mind that we're also using the EYES curriculum and the need to make sure that those two can still happen together. So we've added that in as a goal. So I think next steps there are just making sure that we have that collaboration with between departments to make sure that we're working in the same direction.
Okay, all right, I appreciate it. Anything else? Okay, so, we've already talked about our next steps. And, again, the bulk of this meeting, we had initially planned it for really to build out the subcommittee work. So what I'd like to suggest perhaps is maybe for our next meeting that we set aside a good chunk of time to give you guys the time to do that work as well, so that we can stay aligned with our goals and make sure that we're moving forward. We're having that forward motion in that forward progress, so that we don't become stagnant. Excuse me. Our next meeting, if I've got that in front of me, is set for July 20th. So just a couple of weeks away. Anything that you guys would like to see on the agenda or things that we're missing, if you could give us that feedback. Let's see, if you could give us that feedback in the chat, that would be helpful. We do take a look at the feedback that we get from these meetings. And so any plus deltas or things that we're missing, we really, really would appreciate that. And I guess just to close out, I don't know if, I think Ms. Eastup had to step off the meeting, but I don't know if Ms. Adams, you would like to kind of close us out for tonight.
I would just like to say thank you, especially for those of you that are on summer break right now and are still continuing to come to these meetings and share your insights. I would like to say great congratulations to Franchon. I heard she did a pretty amazing job at the ILM sit-in this week. I was unable to see it, but I heard she was fabulous. So just keep doing all the good work that's going on. I'm just proud to work alongside all of you.
She did. And I also want to say something about that. That was organized by a former student from New Hanover High.
Wow.
So I'm in Bentley. And it was phenomenal. My wife also spoke out at Franchon, did a wonderful job. Yeah, it was really good. It was powerful, social distancing and all. You can still see, I know Rachel was there as well, and Elizabeth Feltz and some others. So it was really good. And I think it's important for us as a work group and as a board and as a work group to make sure that we show up and support those things and mention, just mentioning, hey, I'm very, going and talking to the speakers and telling them, I am a part of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Board for New Hanover County. I really appreciate you speaking. Just because I think the more that we put it out there, people want to see that we're doing the individual work too, that we're really individually invested in this. So definitely, make it a point to show up and to support and to listen to Black voices. That's incredibly important.
All right. Well, guys, I appreciate you so much. And I think I agree completely. Ms. Adams, I think sometimes I forget because, my schedule is that of, 12 months, that a lot of our staff are 10-month employees, but you guys, your commitment rings true, and we do not take you for granted. We so appreciate the commitment that you guys have made to this. And then all of our community members, our retired educators and folks who have other full-time jobs. We appreciate so much that you show up and show out for this work. And it means a lot to all of us. So with that, please add your plus deltas to the chat. We do capture those. It does mean a great deal to us, and it is extremely helpful. And if nothing else, then thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a great night. And I agree, Tyler, Delta and COVID is a Delta. Yes, very much so.
I just want to be able to meet in person.
I
Be there.
know, I
There.
know, I know. Virtual hugs and high fives. All right, guys. Thank you.
As people are doing their plus deltas, I just wanted to let you know, I'll email everyone just so you have the information, but there is an event that's going to be happening put on by Paula Cluth, who is a disability advocacy woman who concentrates on inclusion, particularly curriculum accommodations, and what can inclusive schools do to get any better, to just kind of continuing raising the bar. That will be every Wednesday night in July, just an hour event each time, focusing on school, in the classroom, then in the school, then in the district, and then in the community. And so I'll send that information around for everybody in case you're interested. But she's got a lot of great experience in autism and Down syndrome specifically. So she comes to a lot of the conferences I go to.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, great. Thank you guys. Okay. All righty. I'll see you guys later. Thank you for an awesome meeting as always, Dr. Smith.
You are